21. Heart of a Dragon. "Oh, no," she said, almost under her breath, her voice as small as the disaster was huge. "What do we do now?" The shadowy Fourcoy snapped shadowy fingers under Maya's nose. "We do what I have bound you to do, little cousin niece. The trace of the old me, you will give it here, now, then you will make me whole, as you are also bound to do, as your magic, your power, makes possible now. I think you begin to understand me, do you?" From beside her, Valco's voice, a little shaken, but trying not to let it show. "Didn't you hear what I said? She never took the letter with the bloodstain. She left it in the salamander house. There is no trace of you." The shadow ignored him. "Now, Maya," said the dark remnant of Fourcoy. It tipped its head almost as if amused. "You have done it all, everything you were bound to do, yes?" "The trace, yes," said Maya, her heart sinking into some kind of hollow. She had wanted to find a way off the clockwork path, and all of her best efforts were coming to nothing. It had been her own self feeding the strangeness as it swallowed her world, and now there was no way left to make things right. Oh, why hadn't the poor captured Zmei been more careful? But it had been looking at her. It had been distracted by her. She had tripped it up, and it had not paid close enough attention, and now the terrible cold was marching up and down its stone body. Her hand, like a puppet's hand, like the hand of a machine run by wires and radio waves and cogs, was already pulling a little envelope out of her jacket pocket. Dominoes were falling all around, clickety-clickety-clack. She was bound to do this. She was completely trapped and bound. But the binding didn't prevent her from turning her face to look at the horrified Valco standing there beside her. "I am so sorry," she said to him. And suddenly she was so sad about all this, about having wanted to save the world and make everything all right again for everybody, and yet having utterly, stupidly failed to do so, that she couldn't even quite see his face clearly. "I'm sorry about the poor world, about everything. And there was a lock of his hair in the summer box. I'm so sorry. I tried to burn it, but I couldn't." "I did try." "Oh, Maya," said Valco, "why didn't you tell me?" The shadow broke into Valco's sentence with a shout, a strange and unsettling sound, half human and half something else, unclassifiable but surprised. Its bright violet eyes were fixed now on the starlight dancing around Maya's wrist as she held out that little envelope, the envelope that had come from the summer box, the one that held the lock of Fourcoy's baby hair. "Ah, and you have even brought my bracelet with you." "Excuse me," said Maya, angrily swiping the back of her left hand across her leaky eyes. "Not yours. Leave it alone. My mother got it from her mother, and then it came down to me." The shadowy Fourcoy laughed, but did not lose its grip on the poor dragon's neck. "Don't speak nonsense, girl," it said. "It should have been mine. It was always supposed to be mine. There it is, in a tiny nutshell's worth of stone, our magic and our power. Oh, she made a mistake, my poor mother, when she let it go." "She sent it far away from you. She sent it to my grandmother. That was the opposite of a mistake," said Maya, but her mind was already circling around that one particular word, power. It was true. The opal on her wrist was alive with light. She looked at it more closely and saw how complicated that light was, how many colors were winking in and out of its tangled dance. Maybe there was a better sort of magic in that opal than the dangerous stuff that kept bubbling up in Maya herself the last few weeks. And if there was magic there to be tapped into, now was the moment for that tapping into to happen, wasn't it? She gave the stone a pleading, impatient look and shook her wrist a little, but the light just brightened another notch, and Fourcoy kept laughing. "Maya, watch out," said Valco from not very far away. "What is that thing?" "I think you must maybe throw it right at him," said Pauline from much, much farther away than Valco. "Kaboom!" And then the stone of that bracelet did sort of explode in its own strange way. They were standing in front of a tree, Maya with the radiant wrist held up before her face, and the ever more substantial Fourcoy with one hand clasped like a ring of shadow around the neck of the poor struggling Zmei, ice still spreading farther and farther down its neck and back. The tree stood behind them all, its branches spread wide and quiet in the mist. But as the light from Maya's opal grew brighter and brighter and brighter, the tree trembled and split. Not down the middle, though, not as trees split when an axe or lightning strikes them. Instead, the image of the tree wavered and split, left and right, into two images of two trees, like an old-fashioned stereoscope card, where almost identical scenes on the left and right wait to be brought together in a viewer to make one three-dimensional picture, with depth, or the way tired eyes sometimes wander to the side and the thing you're staring at doubles. Yes, like that. There was the tree, and there was the double of the tree, and the two trees now stood before Maya's eyes, one more or less to the left and the other more or less to the right. She turned her head, back and forth, looking at them. They were not, after all, exactly the same. The world seemed to have split in two with them, so strange. On the left-hand side the tree was dark and grand and mysterious, and underneath it stood a very powerful-looking Fourcoy, with his hand still so cruelly around the neck of the stone dragon. And Valka was there, looking appalled and concerned, with his mouth open as he said something that seemed to be fierce. And Pauline was there, farther away, with a fist in the air. And even Maya herself was there, holding out her wrist with the star on it, and none of the people or dragons were moving. The split-apart world seemed also to have frozen. It made Maya feel very strange to be looking in on herself from, where was she? Outside. She tried to spin around to see where she was, but she could not move that way. Or maybe there was nothing whatsoever to see. She could look only to the left, where everything, including herself, was frozen as it had just this moment been, and to the right, where again there was a tree, mist wreathing around its branches. Under that other tree, the right-hand tree, a girl was walking. Maya thought at first it was herself again she was seeing, which still felt wrong, but when the girl raised her eyes to look at her, Maya saw that there was something odd about her edges. They flickered somehow, like a candle flame. And the eyes did the same thing. Many eyes, many colors, flickering. It wasn't restlessness exactly, but it wasn't until the girl opened her mouth and spoke that Maya finally understood. "We told you. It comes with a choice," said the girl, holding out her hand. There was the thing about that voice. It wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus of voices. The girl, Maya saw now, was not one girl at all, but many, many people, all at once and overlapping somehow, all holding out their one many-layered hand together, in which was one single opal, glittering. Maya glanced back to the left, where the shadow of Fourcoy still had the dragon by the neck, and Valka was caught, mouth open, in mid-shout. What was he trying to say? Valko's lips moved just a hair. Maya jumped. The world over there wasn't frozen, after all. It was just moving very slowly. Like molasses, as her mother might say. She turned back to the flickering girl, standing there under the, now she saw it, flickering tree, which was also many trees, all at once. "How does it work?" she said. "Quick, tell me how to use it. He's breaking the world, or maybe I am. Oh, the world's breaking. Can't you see that? I have to stop him. I have to destroy him." The girl, who was many people at once, looked at her. "That is one choice," she said. "It is very powerful, our family's magic, when used. You have it in you to be powerful. We can see that in you. To reach out with a brilliantly starlit fist and crush the shadow, to crush him to nothing and make him finally go away." It made Maya gasp to feel how much she longed to do that, but the girl's eyes flickered in front of her, watching her. Maya found herself twitching a little under the pressure of so many layers of flickering eyes. "What other choice do I have?" said Maya. "Ah," said all the voices in that one girl. They said it all together, and the leaves of all the many trees that were in that one tree spun a little in the breeze. "The choice is that. to use it or to pass it on. We all reach this age, Maya, this age when the magic in us wells up and wants to be heard. It is being at a place where the path splits in two, where we can walk in on magic under the trees, or take the other way, the bracelets way, and use our power to remake the world. We all choose, and one day that power will need to be used, we think. The choice is real. Is it that day? Maya, impatient, turned to look again over at the world on her left, where she saw that something very strange was happening, inch by inch by inch. The Maya there had begun to lean sideways. She had already begun to crumple. 1 inch's worth so far, to the ground. Valko was still caught in mid-shout, but she couldn't look at his face any more. He was staring at the just beginning to crumple Maya, and there was hopelessness in his eyes, and Valko was never, ever hopeless. The purple-eyed shadow was already taller than when she had looked the last time. His violet eyes were triumphant and bright. One hand of his still clenched the dragon's neck, and the other was now filled with the brightest starlight, leaking out in brilliant glimpses from between the dark, dark fingers of his hand. "What's going on?" cried Maya. It was horrible, all of it. "What's that? Why does he have the bracelet? When did he get my bracelet?" "Soon," said all the many versions of that girl, and they leaned closer, urgently, like a forest of trees in one tree, bending in the wind. "Soon. Don't you see? Don't you see? You are bound." That was when Maya finally did see. She was still bound to make him whole. Apparently choosing power did not unbind a person. She could become the most powerful magician in the world, and still be bound to use all that power simply to do whatever that awful Fourquoy commanded. Like one of those genies in fairy tales, an all-powerful slave, trapped in a stupid clay jar or something. Oh! She took a step back deeper into the nowhere where she was standing, full of horror at how close she had come to destroying, finally, everything. She had been about to choose to use that power that was bound up, somehow, in her family's old magic, and all that power would have flowed from her right to that awful, selfish, hungry Fourquoy, and there would have been no hope left, then, for any of them, for her, for Valko, or for her mother and the little bean, no hope at all. "Maya," said the girl who was many people, in warning. Maya knew them now, some of those faces that were in that girl's flickering face. Even her own mother was there in one of those faces. And that was when the two worlds came slamming together again, and Maya was on her feet in front of the shadowy Fourquoy, and the poor Zmei had just screamed, and Fourquoy was gloating, 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 and holding out his free hand for the lock of his baby hair and the bracelet, because of course what other choice could you make when the world was breaking all around you? Of course you would choose to fight with whatever power you had, and then, if you were bound— "No," said Maya, drawing back her wrist. The shadowy Fourquoy shrieked, which was an awful sound. "That's it. I won't. I choose to pass it on," she said, gasping as she did so, which had been her mother's choice, and her grandmother's choice, and long ago the choice of Henri's mother, too. "To me," said Fourquoy, but he was already a bit shorter than he had been, and he sounded a little petulant. "Pass it to me. It is mine." "Never to you," said Maya. "No way. To my sister." That was when the poor dragon trapped in Fourquoy's hands cried out again, a cry that began as a clear trumpet call of a note. Everything that dragon did was too beautiful for this everyday world of ours, and ended in the crashing din of a rock slide. Wings, beaks, claws, and there they were, gargoyles. For a minute the shadow of Fourquoy was buried in a stony blur. The gargoyles were not moving at merely human speed tonight, that was for sure. They nipped and pulled and poked, and it was a great racket they made as they harried the shadow. How they got the upper hand Maya could not see. It was all happening so fast. But a minute later there they were, Beakface with his claws deeply embedded in one side of the shadow, and Bonnethead grimly hanging on to his back, and the dragon had shaken itself loose and was twining itself around a branch of the nearest big tree, whimpering a little as it pawed at the dark frozen spot on its neck. There was a moment of silence as the gargoyles caught their rocky breaths, and Maya tried to steady hers. Then Bonnethead looked over at Maya and said, "How bright is your bracelet tonight? Do it quickly, dear. We cannot hold him forever." "Do what?" said Maya. "Your magic," said Beak-Face more sharply, but in his defense his hold on the Shadow's side did not look all that secure. "Quick, girl." But what magic did Maya have left? She had just chosen not to use it. She had just chosen to pass it on. "Bound to make me whole," said the Shadow. After all this time and all this trouble, the Shadow of Fourcoy was still hungry. She could see that however much it managed to swallow, it would always be hungry. She tried hard to ignore the ground, still rippling underneath. She was a Laverotte, and they really did walk in more worlds than one. Even if she had no magic left of her own, none of the powerful kind, that was still true. "Bound," repeated the Shadow. "Yes," said Maya. So she walked right up to the shadowy Fourcoy, where the gargoyles held him so tightly between them, their stone eyes thoughtful as they watched her come, and she put her hand on the patch of darkness that was his arm. Valko protested somewhere behind her, but she ignored him. It was not the same as being swallowed, not when you chose it yourself. She rested her hand on his arm as she had rested it so many times on the gargoyle's egg in the weeks gone by, and it seemed to her the Shadow became just slightly warmer under her hand. "You bound me to make you whole," said Maya. "Yes," said the Shadow. "I think I can still do that," she said, "even without my magic. But I've decided it doesn't mean what you thought it meant, when you opened that awful emergency loophole in the wall. Just going on and on and on forever isn't being whole." She could feel the Shadow's uncertainty, like a chill wave under her hand, but she held on and thought warm thoughts, and the cold backed off again and quieted. "You are hungry because you're so empty," said Maya, "but what could possibly fill someone like you? That's the puzzle." She leaned her head closer to him. "There's a lot you've forgotten," she said. Maya turned to look up at the dragon, watching her so intently from its tree limb. "Come down here to me, Egg, will you?" she said. She was almost shy in front of that amazing, glittering creature, but it had recognized her a moment ago. She was quite sure of it. "Egg," said Beak-Face, shifting his wings around to see better. "Is that the best she could do, naming our poor child?" "Hush," said Bonnethead. "I rather like it." They did not loosen their grips on the Shadow, though, not one tiny bit. The dragon unwrapped itself from the tree and flew down to Maya with all the grace and loveliness of water flowing over a cliff somewhere, or ivy growing down some old rock wall, and tucked itself under her left arm, so that her hand was comfortably resting on the lacy stonework of its side. "Look you, Henri," she said to the Shadow. "Do you see what this is? The gargoyle's egg was also your memory stone, you know. That means this dragon holds a lot of summer in it, deep inside. I liked the you I saw in the stone." Under her hand she could feel the amazing skin of the zmei, stone as fragile as eggshell, knit together with light. It warmed to her touch as the egg used to. The dragon looked extraordinary and new, but it felt familiar, and that was comforting. One hand on the zmei, one hand on the Shadow's still fairly chilly arm, Maya asked for the memories back, and they came, forest and field, sailboat, kite, and whistle. The dragon's skin rippled with images. Henri's mother, smiling that wise smile of hers, her hands quickly folding paper, shaping and sewing some child-sized marvel. "I went back to the summer box, Henri," said Maya. "Look what I found there." She had put that in her pocket, too, not just the baby's lock of silvery hair, but the colorful raggle-taggle ribbons. She brought them out now, keeping her arm always close to that zmei. Do you remember what this was? It was a dragon once, you know. Another kind of dragon. The Zmei gave a little shimmy of pleasure. A meadow, all grass and wildflowers, and the mother unfurling a long spool of thread. She made it for you. I think maybe there was magic in it, the way it could fly. A magical dragon of wind and fire and paper, a kite sailing fierce and wonderful above the meadow. The shadow's arm was changing under Maya's hand. It felt smaller and sweeter now, the arm of a child who has wrapped himself in cold darkness only because otherwise he is so very alone facing the world. And the dragon was glowing like a paper lantern, a knot of brightness deep within it and spilling out through the delicate tracery of its skin. A shiver of longing went through the shadow's small and tender arm. There, said Maya. That's it, I'm pretty sure. That memory there, that's the heart of the Zmei. And you can have it. It's yours, only... The shadow was leaning against her now, small and trusting. For a moment Maya was reminded of James, but that thought wrenched her heart, so she had to take another breath before she could go on. Only you can't just eat it up, you know, she said. Things get ruined when you eat them up. Your mother knew that, but you forgot. She thought about it. So what you have to do is, I think, you have to let the memory swallow you, if you want to be whole. Total silence for a minute. The dragon was very still under her left arm, the child shadow very still under her other hand. The gargoyles were as still as only stone knows how to be. The mist was lifting, and the air was quiet, still, and cold. Somewhere deep inside the Zmei it glowed with all the light of summer, and a little boy was flying the dragon kite that his mother had made for him, with scissors and paper and so much love. The tiniest shadowy finger traced the edges of that picture on the dragon's side. Again, said the shadow. And the images came rising up from the inside of the Zmei, flowed right up the shadow child's finger, flowed golden and warm into all that waiting darkness, until the shadow was hardly shadow at all. It was a shining, glowing ball of light balanced in the gargoyle's paws. You could see the boy running through the grass. His head was thrown back, and he was laughing, and the sphere in which he ran was only the size of an orange now. It was shrinking, it was shrinking, it was traveling away. It was a spark hidden in the gargoyle's paws, which had come together as the shadow shrank. The gargoyles, paws clasped, looked at each other, and then up at Maya again. "How odd you quick-living people are," said Bonnet Head with a great stone yawn. "How tiring everything always is. But well done, dear. An effective translation, yes. And now we really must have a nice rest." "Yes," said Beakface, "to be stone again, finally." They turned their faces to the Zmei and said something rock-slidish to it, and the dragon slithered lovingly in and around them, a bright figure 8 of living rock, before springing into the air and flying off with another one of its beautiful trumpeting cries. All that lasted only a moment. The gargoyles, their paws still clasped together around the glowing kernel of memory that had once been the shadow of Henri de Fourquoy, gave Maya a last nod, and somehow leaped all at once right into the stone monument of Antoine Francois Fourquoy, dived right into the stone as if it were a vertical pool of water, and disappeared. Silence, followed by the odd clatter of something small and metallic rolling across the stones. A happy shout from Valco. It was his long-lost barometer. "You do realize," he said, but he was giving Maya an enormous triumphant bear hug as he said it, "that we're going to be in the worst trouble ever when we finally get home. We're locked in the Père Lachaise cemetery, and it's 4 whole hours after closing time." But Pauline Vian just shook her head with wonder as she packed her violin carefully away. "They danced to my music," she said, her frown not quite back to its regular strength. "And, mon Dieu, how beautiful that dragon was! But what you did with that awful shadow that I could not entirely understand." The night was ordinary again. ordinarily dark and ordinarily cold. It was almost unsettling how unstrange everything was. The tombs just tombs, the trees just trees, the heaps of chaos left in the shadow's wake, already on their way back to being earth and stone and grass. The world unbreaking. I will not cry, said Maya sternly to herself. It had been her choice. She had chosen to pass the magic on. And then she thought, to my sister? Well, salamanders live in more worlds than one, and every time they leave one world for the next, their hearts must break a little. But they are strong, salamanders, and they keep moving all the same. Ha! Look at his nose, said Valco, pointing to the old bust of Antoine Francois Fourcroy. That's what happened when the Zmei swung its tail. Maya took a closer look. A chunk of marble had been knocked off one side of his nose, it was true, but the bust kept smiling its half-smile over their heads nonetheless. As Maya's mother might have said, the merest scratch. The thought of her mother did the trick. Maya shook herself and woke up. It was late, right? Time for all salamanders to gather up their things and go home.